What's up, everybody? Curtis Wilkerson here with Inside Arkansas on the Pod at the Palace, coming to you with another episode of the Hoop Hogs video mailbag. For you, you'll be watching this Sunday morning, hopefully. For me, it's late Saturday night after Arkansas football lost 34-10 to LSU. So still trying to process that one, but the show must go on. We got to talk basketball, and maybe this will be a little bit therapeutic because, buddy, I know I need it after that one, and I imagine most of y'all do too. So here we go. A question that I did want to jump into comes from Springdale Pork Chop 4444. Nice name, by the way. It says, please do a breakdown of the remaining roster. It would be informative and exciting. And so we've kind of gone through the top 9 guys in the rotation, strengths, weaknesses, expectations, some film, everything like that. And yeah, there are other guys on the team. Absolutely. So I do want to talk about them. It's a little tricky because there's not that much out there on them yet, as kind of a small sample size, but I'm more than happy to chat about all these guys a little bit. And I want to start with the very first one. I got his picture up here on the screen. It's Jaden Karuletwa, who is an incoming freshman. He's from California, was just such an unknown when Arkansas went out and got him because he wasn't a guy that you could find anywhere in the recruiting rank. It's not just that he wasn't in the top 150 or whatever at 24/7 or on 3 or whoever. He just didn't even have a profile. So this is a guy who really flew under the radar. But then you look at his numbers in high school and you're like, oh, this dude's not bad. I mean, he was an all-league guy as a senior. Okay. 14 points, 4.5 rebounds, but his shooting percentages were insane. He was 94% from the free throw line, 49% from 3. So it's like, okay, maybe this guy's got a transferable skill, which is shooting, and something that you can work with and develop. I got to tell you, we were out at the tip-off tour in Pine Bluff and getting a first look at the Razorbacks, and some of these guys have been injured, and we didn't really get to see much of them, but Jaden was out there the entire time. I absolutely love him for his role. He works incredibly hard. He's a guy who's trying to win every sprint. He's 110% every play, gets after it, pushes these guys who are at the top of the rotation, and he's making them better. And he can play a little bit too. Yes, he absolutely can shoot that thing. He's got a strap on him, and it was fun watching him get hot in some of the shooting drills that they were doing. So yes, that's absolutely something he brings to the table. But I was just impressed with the way he competed. For the most part, I don't want to say the upperclassmen, the top rotation guys were kind of rotating in and out for each other, and they were playing against a combination of some of the back end of the bench guys and the grad assistants. And so he was on the grad assistant team, which means he was just basically playing defense the entire time that they were going 5-on-5. But he was really, really getting after it. They were doing some guard one-on-one drills, and he was competing on that end of the floor. He's not, I mean, you can see the drop off in talent between him and Boogie Fland or whoever, those top guys in the rotation. But he was getting after it, and he got some buckets on a couple of those guys in one-on-one. So I think he's somebody who is going to work his tail off and be a really good teammate. But if he sticks around and he sees it out, and you don't see this as often anymore with guys because of the transfer portal and NIL and all that. But he is a dude who I could see, sophomore, junior year, where all of a sudden he's worked himself into a pretty nice little player and finds a role on the team for you. Excited about him, was really impressed with him, and it was good to see. Some of the other guys, it's a little bit trickier because they weren't playing. So let me go down the list of the roster here. Chavis, for example. This is one that I was really looking forward to seeing, but he didn't participate. He's dealing with an injury. Somebody told me that he'd been kind of in and out since he got to campus with a back injury, I think it was, but he didn't do too much. But man, he looked pretty good just physically. He's listed at 6 foot 180. So he's not very tall, but he looks thick. He looks really, really strong in his upper body, which is something that really stood out to me. But we're talking about a dude here who, not a heralded commit. He got to campus late, or he was added to the team late, but he was originally committed and signed with Washington, who's a Big Ten school. He was recruited by, teams like Arizona State, Mississippi State, I think some other, power conference programs. He was a 3-star prospect, ranked inside the top 150 in a couple of those services. So he was kind of in that Joseph Pinion, Barry Dunning range in terms of being a prospect. Not a bad little player from what I understand. That there's been some times where he's kind of popped in practice and maybe could be that guy who was next up, outside that top 9 to get a look. So I wish he would have played. I really do, because I would have liked to seen him. But I wonder if he's going to be a guy who we might see a little bit throughout the course of the year, especially, in some of these exhibitions or in early season games where maybe they're playing, some tomato cans out there and they got a big lead and you don't want to play John L. Davis 38 minutes or whatever, and get him in there and get him a look, because this dude was a prospect. He was in those recruiting rankings. So somebody keep an eye on, maybe Cash Chavis. Another one who I was really excited to see, who was also hurt and just wasn't really didn't look like he was moving around too well. And I don't know what the nature of his injury was, but to me, he looked like a guy who was kind of walking around that maybe had a hamstring or a groin issue or something. I don't know for sure, but it was Melo Sanchez. Dang it, I really wanted to see him too, because yes, he is it's a huge jump going from Division II to the SEC. There's no doubt about that. You won't get any argument here. But we've seen guys who have done it. I mean, Derek White, who just won an NBA title, started his career at D2. Jalen Wells, who Arkansas was all over in the transfer portal, started at D2. Then he transferred up to Washington State and was a baller. Then he was in the portal, but he wound up getting drafted, so he went to the NBA instead. Chaney Johnson, a guy who is in the rotation at Auburn now, was at a Division II school. So like there are examples, several of them. That's just a handful of guys who've made that jump and been successful at it. And if you look at Melo Sanchez, he did look the part. I mean, he's every bit of, I think, 6'4", 6'5", probably in that 180, 190 range. But his biggest attribute is his three-point jumper. I mean, he absolutely stroked it at the Division II level, led the Pac-West Conference in three-point percentage as a freshman. He shot 46% as a freshman. That's really, really good. Shot it well as a sophomore, but we're talking about a guy here who's made he's averaging about 70, a little over 70 made threes per year. He made 70 his freshman year, or 70 his sophomore year, and 77 his freshman year. So the dude can really shoot it. I don't know if he can guard, because we haven't had an opportunity to see that yet. I don't know if he can finish around the rim, because we haven't had an opportunity to see that yet, but I know he can shoot it. And so that's one thing you got going. So again, hope he gets healthy, because these are the kind of guys that you could see in these exhibitions early on in the season, and wonder, like, hey, if Arkansas did have a handful of guys go down, you needed somebody in a pinch to give you some minutes, who would that be? And I kind of thought he might be one of those guys to do that, but I know he's missed quite a bit of time, so you got to get him healthy. And that's kind of a common theme, I think, for the Razorbacks overall, because we know Jonas Adu's been limited, Nelly Davis has been limited, Adut Thiero's been limited. I know Trevin's been in and out with, I think, a sore back. So these dudes got to get healthy, man, because the season's creeping up on them quick. I don't think that they're going to be at full strength for this Kansas exhibition. I hope I'm wrong, but obviously it really counts on November 6th, so you want to see that. Let's see some other guys here. Oh, yeah, the other two. Aiden Kelly, incoming freshman out of South Haven, Mississippi. Small guard. He is 5'10", 170 pounds. And then you got Kareem Watkins, who's a grad transfer, excuse me, who's DJ Wagner's stepbrother, who was at Kentucky with Cal. He'd been there for the longest, and just a guy who's been just kind of a walk-on who just really, I mean, he just helps the team in practice, right? I think he played in 3 games. They were announcing this. He played in 3 games. He had a start against Vanderbilt. So he's played in SEC games before. Talking about Kareem Watkins here, but he's a guy he strikes me as a pest defensively. He's got that low center of gravity, and he'll really get in your grill and make you work. Guy who plays hard, understands the system and the offense, so it's smooth running against it. A guy who I think embraces the whole thought of being on a scout team, and learning the opposing team's plays, their schemes. And that helps. That helps you. It absolutely does. I mean, I think it's important to have a guy who's been around Cal and that coaching staff for the longest, and he's also familiar with DJ and Adut Thiero and Big Z. So it kind of helps with the chemistry, laying that foundation for the culture that they want to have early on. So that's all good with Kareem Watkins. He's going to be a guy that I think helps Arkansas this season. No, probably not. And I think Aiden Kelly might be like the Kareem Watkins in the making, as a true freshman there. 5'10", 170 pounds again, out of South Haven, Mississippi. He put up some pretty good numbers in high school. I mean, he averaged, let's see what they have here, 19 points, 4 boards, 4 assists his senior year. But there's also that coach Calipari. The man just knows, or his coach, someone who's related to somebody. It's just no matter who you look at. But Aiden Kelly is the son of former Memphis guard Antonio Burks, who played for Cal when Cal was at Memphis from 2001 to 2004. And there's kind of it kind of runs in the family a little bit. I think with Aiden Kelly, his stepfather is Tony Harris, who was a Tennessee Volunteers point guard back in the day. I think he was a McDonald's All-American too. So basketball kind of runs in the genes there. But a guy who was not as heralded of a recruit as some of these other dudes, but somebody again who maybe they can develop and work into something in the future. So yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that question. And wanted to make sure that I came in here and addressed all those guys, because I don't want them to feel like they're not a part of the team, because they absolutely are. They're key to it. And that those guys, you're only kind of as strong as your weakest link. Making each other better in practice. And if you got to be called on in a pinch, you got to be ready to go. So the only thing I wish I had was a little bit more by way of film to kind of break down these guys. So I'll do a little bit more digging. I think I've got enough on our highlights to where we could do something with Jaden. And then there's probably enough out there on Melo Sanchez, if I can kind of find some tape, some highlights from his Division II days, and we'll put that together. But I appreciate the question for sure. Mr. Springdale or Mrs. Springdale Pork Chop 4444. That was nice. But at any rate, I'm going to get out of here. It's late Saturday night, frustrated about this football game, but I ain't gonna lie, it felt kind of good to talk a little basketball for a minute. Appreciate you guys. We're right there. This exhibition's coming up on Friday. Everybody's excited about it. This basketball team, they might struggle a little bit if they're not at full strength for these exhibitions, but buddy, they're going to be really, really good once they're healthy and rolling this season. There's no doubt about that. A lot of talent on this team, and seems like they're coming together pretty well. So appreciate you guys as always. Make sure you get subscribed to our YouTube channel, Inside Arkansas. Check out all our written content at InsideArkansas.com. And I'll catch you guys again in the morning. It's been Curtis Wilkerson with the Pod at the Palace. Everybody have a good one. Thanks.